All right, let's call to order the regular council meeting for the town of St. Andrews on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024, 6:45 p.m. Here we are at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex Chambers. This meeting will also be streamed through Zoom and Facebook. If anyone has any questions pertaining to tonight's topics and agenda, please email pnopper@townofstandrews.ca, and he'll be sure to add that at question period at the end of this meeting. I want to note that all members of council are in attendance for this one as well, both online. Is that correct, Mr. Spear or Mr. Nopper? All right, thank you, council. And I do want to recognize once again that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Peskotomouhkati people. If you're looking for a mover for tonight's agenda, I've got Councillor Harland and seconded by Councillor Heenan. Any changes to this evening's agenda? Seeing none, all in favor of this agenda, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. That has been carried. Any conflict of interest this evening? Okay, seeing none, if anything pops up again, please let me know. We have no presentations, which is rare for a regular meeting, so we will jump right into the minutes from the previous meeting. I'll be looking to adopt the minutes of the 24/08/06 regular council meeting, Tuesday, August 6th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Could I have a mover for those minutes? I've got Councillor Heenan and seconded by Councillor Hurdle. Any discussion or changes to those minutes? Okay, call the question. All in favor of adopting those minutes, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. Those minutes have been adopted. We're jumping into communications. Over to you, Mr. Spear.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, as we go into the fall, there are lots of initiatives before you tonight, then many more throughout the remainder of the year, including the budget, new developments, the motor vehicle bylaw, the municipal plan, and the heritage bylaw. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share the ongoing activities of your local government. Over the summer, the Heritage Committee has been engaging, consulting, and drafting a proposal for the heritage bylaw for the plat. They held meetings with both the affected property owners and the general public to explain the benefits and how the document would be applied in practice. It is now in your hands to go through the bylaw process if desired. Tonight, there's a motion to call the hearing of objections in early October prior to first reading. The committee is preparing an FAQ based on some of the comments that came out of the consultation sessions. Council continues to guide development through the municipal process, as we have a couple of items on the agenda tonight for your consideration. The Algonquin request for rezoning is going to third reading to allow for the construction of the Nordic Spa and the replacement of the O'Brien House on Carlton Street, and to go to first reading for the proposal to build small homes along Mowat Drive adjacent to the Greenside Motel. It has been a busy year for development, with possibly more in sight. While some residents have expressed concern over our capacity to absorb this growth, many municipalities are envious of the new housing starts we are experiencing. Our current solid waste bylaw is out of date, especially with the local government's reform that happened at the start of last year. We are simultaneously updating the bylaw while issuing a tender for the collection and disposal of residential waste for 2005 to 2028. Council has instructed staff earlier in the year to enter into discussions on an agreement for the provision of economic development services. The initial plan is for the town and two other municipal partners will share the cost of an economic development officer over a 3-year period. The hope is they will work on similar initiatives like workforce development and housing while addressing the specific needs of each community as well. Council has set aside funding for this in 2023 and 2024, so this is a planned initiative and an unfilled role being met. Under administration, council and staff continue to work through the potential development of apartments behind the New Brunswick Community College in St. Andrews. We met with the architect on August 28th to review the conceptual plans, including the site and floor plans. Initially, the building looked attractive and would not distract from the adjacent properties. However, this report is being written prior to council feedback and may not represent their views. The current bylaws concerning the regulation and licensing of peddlers is dated June 1985 and signed by Mayor Lawrence and Clerk Keith Robichaud and should be updated. The bylaw gives discretionary power to staff and who can and cannot receive permission to peddle their wares. Over the years, with tourism becoming the predominant economic sector, we are facing many unforeseen challenges unforeseen 40 years ago, including food trucks, professional buskers, and mobile retail outlets. Consequently, staff have created a bylaw that provides clear direction on the various categories of peddlers and transient traders, as well as identify suitable locations. It was tabled last month to allow the business community more time to provide feedback. It has been circulated to Explore St. Andrews, the St. Andrews Chamber of Commerce, and the Business Improvement Area members for their input, and minimal feedback has been provided to date. Early in the month, we had a sensor malfunction at the water treatment plant that created a low chlorine situation and caused all water users to fall under a boil water order. On top of the July 1st power outage, we understand this was another major inconvenience on already taxed community. I wish to apologize for the annoyance, and we are looking at building in further redundancies for all controllable functions to prevent this from happening again. I want to thank the community, as there are a few of you who took out their frustrations on staff as we worked tirelessly to mitigate the situation. Our planner, Xander Gopin, continues to work on the municipal plan for the expanded community. He will bring a draft copy to council in early October for your perusal and input, then we'll take it back for further editing prior to releasing it to the public and continued consultation. Over the last month, parking has noticeably gotten more congested as we struggle with more vehicles, those that choose to park in restricted areas, and RVs who are setting up overnight in multiple locations throughout the urban area. We'll be reviewing the motor vehicle bylaws this fall and discussing with council strategies as opposed to just fines to battle the issue. Under services, the 200th anniversary of Chestnut Hall, currently home to the Ross Memorial Museum, was celebrated on August 24th with MP John Williamson, Minister Kathy Baucus, and Deputy Mayor Akagi performing greetings and congratulations on behalf of the three levels of government. Built by Harris Hatch, an attorney who had a distinguished career from 1808 until 1838, including being appointed to the Legislative Assembly, the home is representative of the heritage buildings we have throughout the municipality that define us. The town-operated historical attractions had approximately 4,900 visitors throughout the first 3 weeks of the month. There was a major structure fire in town a few weeks ago that required the combined efforts of the St. Andrews, St. Stephen, Eastern Charlotte, and Rolling Dam fire departments to battle it. As always, we're grateful for the cooperation between all firefighters throughout the region. The chief also wants to acknowledge the members of Ambulance New Brunswick and the RCMP who attended the scene. I want to thank the members of our department who continued their level 1 training over the summer, working towards their certification. Both the arena and the youth center hosted youth camps throughout the summer. Both were well attended, as the arena activities were day long, while SIAC hosted half-day camps. The recreation manager hosted New Brunswick Day activities during the August long weekend, with a couple hundred people attending children activities and entertainment. We hope to grow this in future years. The recreation master plan consultant has met with staff to lay out the timeline for completion. We also formed a steering committee with staff plus councillors Blanchard and Gumashell, assisting them in the early stages. As the plan starts to take form, they will hold a meeting with the whole of council. In conclusion, despite the summer months coming to a conclusion, there are still many activities taking place in September. On the 7th, we'll be holding our inaugural Trail Fest to celebrate the Van Horn Trail with musicians and organized walks. The 3rd annual Oktoberfest, now including Burger Week, will take place September 18th and 2nd. I'd also like to remind everybody that the Conservation Council will be putting on a workshop on wildfire preparedness tomorrow at 6 p.m. here at the arena. Then on September 30th, we plan to hold a solemn remembrance of National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which traditionally is organized by our deputy mayor. Once plans are finalized, we will communicate them to the public. Respectfully submitted, Chris Spear, Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Appreciate that. I also note that Andrew Lord submitted a report as Assistant Treasurer. Anything you want to highlight from a financial perspective?
As he notes, your worship, we are certainly above budget with the winter months being less severe than we'd hoped. And then some of our capital projects being down. We'll be looking at this through the fall. And there's an anticipation of a surplus this year, which will go into reserves for future projects.
Most of that's a fake surplus as we already have it spent for future projects, right? So appreciate that. Any questions for Mr. Spear, council? Okay, not seeing, oh, go ahead. Or any of the reports, yeah, absolutely. Yep, by all means, Councilor Arlen.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Spear, for your report and for town staff for their monthly reports. I know it's another task that they are required to do, and I appreciate receiving the information. I had a question for Mr. Knopper. With respect to the security camera rebates, can you give us an update in terms of how many rebates have been provided so far?
Yep, so through your worship, through the first review of them, we had 18 submissions of that approximately getting close to $2,000. I know that several others have come in, and I'm going to be going through them this week, looking at approvals, but we're looking at potentially almost half the money spent within a month.
Great.
So,
Great.
and most people are buying multiple cameras, not just one single camera. So it's nice to see that the funds are being well spent. And
Excellent.
some people are buying more above the rebate. So that's also nice to see.
Wonderful.
Great question.
Can I have an?
You can, we're going to be here all night together either way.
There we go. This one's for, with regard to the master plan, recreation master plan. Do we have an idea of when we can expect a final report or a draft report or?
Well, the final report is aimed for early in the year, possibly a draft in December.
Oh,
I think
really?
they can do it that fast.
Oh, great.
We have a lot of the information that would typically take them time already put together through our recreation manager. So that helps speeds things up. We'll be talking to them shortly about consultation and getting information from the public on what they'd like to see and then moving from there.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other member of council? Okay, be looking for a motion to accept the staff reports as presented. Councillor Heenan, seconded by Councillor Hurdle. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. Those have been accepted. We're going to jump right into the motions for this evening. So we're going to go to Planning and Community Development Committee. And the first motions are actually under Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. PCD 240501. Amendments MP 20-02-03 to the secondary municipal plan MP 20-02 and Z 22-09 to zoning bylaw Z 22-01 for PIDs 151647180 1324284 and 742039 in B limited third and final reading. The background is the town of St. Andrews has received a secondary municipal plan and zoning bylaw amendment request for PIDs 15164718013 24284 and 742039 in B limited the Algonquin Resort. The applicant is seeking to move from the tourism commercial zone to integrated development zone to carry out special purpose development on two different areas of land. The proposed plans would not fit with the tourist commercial zone and would not conform with the height and massing requirements of the secondary municipal plan. The following is the bylaw process to follow. There was a public presentation May the 6th, 2024, obtained views of the Planning Advisory Committee, May 17th, 2024, obtained views of the Heritage Board, May 17th, 2024, public hearing of objections, July the 2nd, 2024, first reading, July 2nd, 2024, second reading, August the 6th, 2024. Terms and conditions under Z 22-09 are approved before the third and final reading by a motion of council. The action, your worship and council, is that the council of the town of St. Andrews grants leave for the third and final reading to amendment MP 20-02-03 to the secondary municipal plan MP 20-02 for PIDs 151647118 0132424 and 742039 NB Limited Algonquin Hotel. And your worship, I also move this.
Perfect. I'll be looking for a seconder. Counselor Gumashell, thank you. Any discussion on this one? Okay, I will call the question. All in favor of going to the third and final reading, please signify by saying aye.
I, your worship.
Any opposed? Seeing none, so I will read it by title. This is bylaw number MP 20-02-03, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 20-02, being the secondary municipal plan bylaw for the town of St. Andrews, read the third time on September 3rd, 2024. Next one.
Thank you, your worship. The next is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the terms and conditions by resolution as identified in Schedule C1 under the Amendment Z 22-09 to the Town of St. Andrews zoning bylaw Z 22-01. Your worship, I move this.
Thanks again. A seconder as well. I've got Deputy Mayor Akaji on that one. Any discussion on the terms and conditions? Seeing none, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that has been carried. Next motion.
Next motion, Council and Mayor, that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews grants leave for the third and final reading to the amended amendment Z 22-09 to the zoning bylaw Z 22-01 for PIDs 151647118 and 013242844 742039 NB Limited Algonquin Hotel. And once again, I so move.
Thank you, Counselor Heenan. And I see a seconder already with Counselor Gumashell. Discussion? All in favor of going to this third and final reading, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. So I will read it once again by title. This is bylaw number bylaw number Z 22-09, a bylaw to amend bylaws number Z 22-01, being the zoning bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. This has been read the third time, once again, on the third day of September of 2024, and that wraps up a 4-month public process. So thank you, council. We will jump ahead to the next motion and give me a moment. I think it's Councilor Harlan. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. So this reference number is PCD 240702. Amendment Z 22-10 to the zoning bylaw Z 22-01. PIDs 15025083, 01326214, and 01325406 at 236 Mowat Drive, Harbour Town Builders, first and second reading. The town of St. Andrews has received a rezoning request for PIDs 150-25083, 01326214, and 01325406 for 236 Mowat Drive from Harbour Town Builders. They are looking to create a small subdivision of 2-story homes. The bylaw process has been as follows: public presentation August 6, 2024. Views of the Planning Advisory Committee, August 21st, 2024. Public hearing of objections, September 3rd, 2024. First reading, second reading, third and final reading. If the council is satisfied with the views of the Planning Advisory Committee and the information from the public hearing of objections, council can move to the first and second readings. Council can still make changes to the amendment bylaw up to the third and final reading and add terms and conditions. Pardon me. So the motion is as follows: that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews grants leave for the first reading to amendment Z 22-10 to the zoning bylaw Z 22-01 for PIDs 150. Pardon me. for PIDs 15025083, 01326214, and 01325406, 236 Mowat Drive, Harbour Town Builders, and I so move.
Thank you. And a seconder, he's quick tonight, I'll tell you. Counselor Gumashell, discussion on this one. Again, we did get some feedback from the public this evening, but we can add that in if that's the way you desire. Staff will take that back and come back with a recommendation, as well as talking obviously to the developer. Any other comments or questions? Counselor Heenan.
Yes, your worship and council, I'm just reading the motion and it grants leave for the first reading. Down here and up at the top, it says for first and second readings. So there has to be, would there have to not be an amendment to that?
No, because it's the motion. The
Okay.
background, we don't need to amend, but the motion is actually what we're actually adopting.
Okay.
But
So through your worship, just to note, the reason why that changed was staff discussed it and thought bringing forward just one motion where you guys can talk about any terms and conditions. That way we could change it, bring it forward for second reading. So I just didn't change the top
Thank you.
title.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of going to first reading, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. That has been carried. So we are going to first reading. This is bylaw number Z 22-10, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z 22-01, being the zoning bylaw for the town of St. Andrews, is now read the first time, the third day of September 2024. All right, that will wrap up our planning and community development. I don't know, Mr. Henderson, if you have to stick around with the heritage one, or you're good to go? I don't count, I guess over to staff. Do you feel any? I don't
I
really.
guess we've kept up to date on the heritage file. Here's the first question. Feel free to stay then.
You must really love it here, eh? First council meeting for you, eh? All right, let's jump ahead to Finance and Administration Committee, Deputy Mayor Akaji. Yeah, there's the first one there for you.
Thank you, your worship. FA 240930. And policy, the subject is policy P-24-03, contractor requirements, for the town of St. Andrews. So the background is this. Staff are presenting the council with a recommendation to approve policy P-24-03, contractor requirements for the town of St. Andrews as it relates to certifications and insurance. To ensure proper processes are followed, staff would like to implement this policy to ensure contractors for the town are providing up-to-date copies of WorkSafe certification and certificates of insurance for minimum liability of $2 million Canadian, $2 million. So contractors providing this information before the start of any project with the town of will ensure that the company meets the standards of the town and province of New Brunswick. So the motion is this, that the council of the town of St. Andrews approves policy P-24-03, contractor requirements for the town of St. Andrews. And I so move, your worship.
Thank you. A seconder on this one, Councillor Bennett. So this is on the table now. Quick question just on the way that this reads is, I work for a company that has over 3 employees, but if you have under 3, 1 or 2 employees, are you required to have a WorkSafe New Brunswick registration certification?
You're not required, your worship, but it's highly recommended. It's probably the cheapest LTD insurance you'll ever get for anyone that's disabled. And to remember from the town's perspective, we have to insure people that are insured through our weekly, and an accident happens to them, it shows up on our experience, will increase the rates
Okay.
moving forward for our own town. So it's the best interest of the taxpayers that every employer should carry this,
So
or
just-
subcontractor for the
So
town.
I just want to clarify, if you are a company of 1 or 2 employees, then in order to work with the town of St. Andrews, you will be required to go to WorkSafe New Brunswick to get a registration certification. So just making sure, just for clarity on that one. Councilor Gumashell.
Sorry, I was away. This one, I didn't get a chance to review. I'm wondering what it costs roughly for a contractor to have $2 million liability insurance. Does anybody know? You know, staff?
Depends what industry they're in, to be perfectly honest. But you're probably talking $1,500 to $4,000 just for liability, if not cheaper. It should be noted, I was talking to some of our subcontractors. We have a fairly small pool. Most of them are already covered under both of these anyway. This is really just formalizing the process.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, just for the background, Mr. Counselor Gumashal, we did get a concern from someone in the community that witnessed someone that may or may not have had the proper qualifications and doing a job within the town limits. So we decided that this was a best practice to implement. So that's where the background is.
Thank you.
Your worship, just to go add something to this is that for any of our large projects like road work and that, has always been a requirement of major undertakings. It's just when we have kind of one-of projects first that come in and out in a day or two that we haven't been seeking this, but we thought we better put it in place just to, again, for the previous reasons.
Counselor Ware.
I'll just add a additional comment on that. The workers' comp, you can apply for voluntary coverage. Again, the rate would be set according to the industry you're in. And there are limitations on how much the owner of the business can receive as far as workers' comp. So the other alternative is, as Mr. Spear said, that then the town is automatically has to carry the coverage. The insurance, probably a lot of the 1 and 2 person businesses do not have the insurance. We are cutting out a number of very small operators in town, probably won't qualify to get any town work. Not unless they see the opportunity to get a contract, then they might go out and get the insurance and the voluntary coverage. But that is the downside to it. I look at it as the cost of doing business. If you want to do business with the town, you're going to have to go out and get this, what they may feel is unnecessary insurance and workers' comp, but it is what it is. Otherwise, the town is liable in more ways than one. So that's what it works down to. That there will be a few people that will no longer qualify to do work for the town. So.
Thank you, Counselor Ware.
If,
Counselor Gumashal, yeah.
thank you, Counselor Weir. I guess that was my concern, that it would put some of the little guys out of the game, but according to what the CAO said, it's not so much that it's insurmountable for smaller companies, but nice to be able to see the little guys stay in working for the town if possible.
Anyone else? All right, I will call the question. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody that has been carried. All right.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And that you had a quick one. Yes. Okay, so we are getting into discussion on the garbage issues on Chamcook line number 3. We've talked about this several times. I think staff, though, is, I guess, to really summarize it, is you're looking for clear direction from council on what we want to happen when it comes to this issue that's been ongoing for a number of years. So council, yeah, there's been some dialogue back and forth. Mr. Spear, do you want to highlight it then?
Your worship, Your worship, I didn't want to cut, but I am trying to organize a meeting with residents out there later in the month. It is a challenge for sure. It's been an ongoing challenge. One thing that is kind of a hybrid option would be the carrier has offered just to bring out the dumpster 1 day a week, leave it there for 24 hours and pull it out. So the residents wouldn't be used to the 7 days automatic or, 7 days availability, but at the same time, the Bears lose 6 days availability to be able to get into it until we figure it out. We have been, just so you're aware, in the latest tender that went out, we're asking that these bins be latchable, I think was the word I used, for animal control purposes. So that has to be part of the new contract coming into next year. So if, I guess that's my thoughts right now. If you can give me a month before council talks about it, we'll get a little more feedback from them, from the residents, and then we can have a more complete report to you.
I think if you're gonna have a public meeting with the public, then they should look at all the options and provide us recommendations, and then we will debate it at that time. There's no point us deciding a solution and we're gonna go to the public. Councilor Michelle.
A motion to table pending the outcome of the meeting.
Yep. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councilor Bennett, discussion on the tabling? Councilor Ware?
I'll just bring you up to date on it. I did send an email out. I've been there every 3 hours, 9, 12, 3, and 6 during the night since Friday. To date, I've seen 1 raccoon, and I think probably raccoons are causing as much, if not more, of the mess than bears are. Bear season opened yesterday morning at daybreak. So I think the issue has been resolved for the fall until freeze up, which time the bears will go into hibernation. Raccoons, I guess, do similar. And but I will look after it. It's looked after for this fall, and how we deal with it in the future will depend on whether we get they call them bear-proof dumpsters. They're actually bear-resistant. They're not proof. And there's issues with those too, but at least it gives us the winter to deal with it. And like I said, I will deal with the problem this fall.
Councilor Harland.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. So just to clarify though, Councillor Weir, although you say you've dealt with the problem, Mr. Spear, you're still going to meet with residents?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
it's a long-term, well, it's going to be a long-term problem regardless. If Councillor Ware can help solve us in the short term, but it's still, once the animals come out of hibernation and things starting in the spring, it could be an issue. And there might be other things that we can do. So we have to look at all the options moving forward.
okay,
So we have a short-term solution. Now we're looking for a long-term solution.
perfect. Thank you.
Not to get too into it, but I wouldn't rule the bears out because this is the time where they bulk up a lot. So they'll look for any food they can in the fall. So yeah, let's hear from the public and then we'll revisit this one as we've all heard the options before and we're trying to figure the best one for the residents of that area. So we have a mover to table, seconder. Anyone else? Okay, all in favor of tabling, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. This discussion has been tabled. We're going to jump ahead to economic development, business and culture. And we will jump ahead to 116, which would be Councilor Ware.
Okay, EBC 240804. A bylaw number 24-03, a bylaw regulating and licensing of peddlers, buskers, transient traders, call for public hearing of objections. Staff have prepared a new version of bylaw number 75, bylaw regulating and licensing peddlers and transient traders. This bylaw was originally enacted in 1985 and has received limited updates. The new proposed bylaw number 24-03 would replace bylaw number 75 and include the following provisions: opportunities and locations for busker entertainers, opportunities and locations for peddlers, opportunities and locations for transient traders, food trucks, and food trailers. The bylaw also includes enforcement measures, revocation of permit processes, and process for review and approval of applications. The bylaw provides more flexibility in issuing permits and supporting sustainable growth in this industry. This bylaw was sent for comment to the St. Andrews Chamber of Commerce, Explore St. Andrews, and the St. Andrews BIA. Comments have been submitted and are provided with this report. And the motion is that the council of the town of St. Andrews sets the date of Monday, October 7th, 2024 at 6:30 PM for a public hearing of objections to bylaw number 24-03, a bylaw to regulate the licensing of peddlers, buskers, and transient traders in the town of St. Andrews. I so move.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Ware. I'll be looking for a seconder. Ooh, that was a dead tie. Counselor Harlan will get it then. So the mover seconder, any discussion on this one? Counselor Heenan and then Mr. Spear. So I was saying, why don't we go to Mr. Spear and then we'll go to council? That makes sense. Counselor Heenan, go ahead, Mr. Spear.
Yeah, just real quick, your worship, I guess, I didn't know if council had any interest in touching on anything that they think needs to be adjusted in this bylaw already before putting out to the public, just to see if you want to leave it as is and adhere to the public, that's perfectly fine. But after you table it, there is some discussion back and forth, and we want to make sure that at least the rough draft that you want to propose to the public meets your expectations. If you want to work it out a little bit before we move to meeting of objections, hearing of objections, we can. I just want to bring that up.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. On that note, I guess if I'm reading this bylaw correctly, for under food trucks, it would allow 3 food trucks per location, meaning that we could have 3 downtown, 3 at the point, and 3 at the arena. Is that the way I read that?
Through your worship, we would only issue out 3 permits maximum, so it would be 3 permits, could be here, could be
Okay.
there, could be.
I'll give it another read. I
Give it
almost
another read.
interpreted the way it was read that it would allow 3 per location,
I'll double check that, but I'm pretty sure. it
which
was
9
3 per-
would be extreme, as we all know.
We
right?
we're looking only at a maximum of 3, but I can make any adjustment to the bylaw.
Counselor Heenan, then we'll go to Counselor Bill Michelle.
Your worship, it's not a big deal, but I have a problem with Explore St. Andrews letter that it's not signed.
Good point.
I don't believe that's official unless it's signed by a representative of Explore St. Andrews, because like I would not take this into account because there's no signature. Thank
Okay.
you.
Duly noted. It was emailed in, was it? Yeah, it was through their email. But yes, duly noted for sure. Counselor Michelle.
Thank you, worship. Just one quick question. I'm not completely clear on how the 3 food trucks would be chosen. Would it be by RFP or would it be by lottery? How we determine if we had more than 3 applicants, which 3 would be chosen?
Believe it was first come, first serve. Is that correct? And but there would be a scope to make sure that it was I think staff will be looking for a different offering than what's available within the community. So
There's like an equivalent of a non-competition clause, if you will, your worship, where, so fish and chips truck wouldn't probably be
Here.
chosen to serve in the community.
And through your worship, the permits are only valid for 6 weeks, so not to say that other food trucks won't have an opportunity to come in. There is an opportunity to renew if so desired, but if we have other applications that want to come in and set up shop, we will give those consideration. If council wants us to look at other ways of how you want us to RFP or select food trucks, again, 6-week permit is what we're offering.
I think that's what a hearing objections is good for, to so the public can give us input on what they would like to see, as well as potentially the talking with the fees more specifically. I'd like to hear some input from the public. Counselor Harlan.
Thank you. I'm wondering about why we would have food trucks in the downtown in Market Square, except for special events. I understand we have requests for special events and they come to Market Square, those food trucks come to Market Square, but I thought we were talking about sort of expanding the reach and having one here potentially in this parking lot, down at the point, maybe I don't know, down by the blockhouse or somewhere, but to get it outside of the downtown core.
Well, so Counselor, I guess one thing, and yes, we did have that discussion that it wasn't ever really formally edited, I guess, or requested to be amended by council. But do remember that most of the people, or a lot of the people in town are in the downtown when they're looking for establishments. So, and the competition's down there. So if they're, as most places don't have reservations, if people are going from shop to shop, they'll probably just go out of town. But if you had an area in the downtown where people could walk up to a food truck, we have Sheriff Andrews' house has more picnic tables. We're gonna be putting in a tent next year. There is an advantage to having it downtown. I'm not saying we have to go that way. I'm just saying there is an advantage from a end user perspective of having it down there.
Counselor Heenan?
Yes, your worship and council, I am total agreement with Councillor Harland. I don't believe that the food truck belongs in Market Square, only on a special occasions. Like I understand with Oktoberfest, Paddle Fest, those types of things, but it's going to be in direct competition with the people there with generators, noise pollution, etc. There's all kinds of places like we have the Point easily to be able to put one, which would really serve the public well. Up here to have one, but Market Square to me does not belong a trailer and a food truck in it. And I would not ever support that except for the special occasions. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Heenan. Maybe I'll just try to get some consensus. How many would like to see for, I guess you could say this bylaw, and again, it's the first version. How many would like to see the downtown location omitted from this bylaw? Show of hand, that's majority. So let's omit that before we issue it out. Does that work? We don't need yeah, we've got consensus there. Okay, council, anything else? No. Oh, Mr. Spear, then we'll go to Mr. Bennett. Councilor Bennett.
Just one thing, your worship, I will note that the downtown location was on Mondays and Tuesdays when many of the shops have been closed traditionally. That was kind of the compromise at the last meeting, but certainly we can remove it. But that was kind of the direction we took because of the lack of services earlier in the week.
Yeah, I think council, over to you just for clarification, Mr. Spear's point, but I do believe almost most of the restaurants now are open Monday, Tuesday in the downtown as well. It really changed the last 18 months, I would say. More and more places are up 7 days a week right now. We'll go Councilor Bennett, actually.
Thank you, your worship. Something else I think that we should take into consideration. Locations like out on the 127 where there's chip stands, fish and chip stands. The traffic there is atrocious at best for most of the summer and even into the late fall. Protecting the core downtown is one thing, but also protecting, citizens and traffic in locations like on that 127 corridor where it's already extremely busy. If we don't have the foresight to think about a location like that and make sure that somebody doesn't end up putting a truck in someone's driveway, could only add to our frustrations in the future. So a little forethought, on a location like that, might save us a lot of grief. Thank you.
Perfect. That wouldn't be approved through this bylaw, correct?
Through your worship, there is an avenue if there are people that wish to operate, because it's the bylaw allows operation on private land if there is a site plan and permission given by the landowner, because the town doesn't own pretty much any land outside of the old town limits, the St. Andrews ward. So at that point, it becomes, I have to review the situation and consider, we could add that as considerations to that.
Refer you to section 7.6.
Thank you.
Which talks about it, but if, again,
That's
council can amend it later if.
Was that peddlers or was that food permit?
Food trucks.
Food trucks it was, okay. Council, over to you. I think you might want to crawl before you run. It just feels like opening it up to everybody's gonna.
So are you gonna prohibit it though, your worship, out there? It's
Well,
either
no, I'm
control it
not
or
even saying
prohibit
out there, I'm just saying period. Let's get a few food trucks in town before, all right, I'll give you an example. So Kira has a lot in front of the annex. Does that mean that they could potentially put one there?
Through the
Yeah.
process, you would have to go through the process, but again, there's only a
Right.
limit of X number of permits allowed for 6 weeks.
Okay,
So it's whether it's private or public, it's a permit for 6 weeks.
okay, so the maximum of 3 then, either way. Councillor Heenan and Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just one point I'd like to bring forward is the fact that we have concentrated as a council of keeping our folks that are in town employed. And the thing is, I'm not against at all competition. I'm just saying that if we can keep people in our restaurants working full time, and now with our new apartment buildings and things, we will have a far better staff. I think it's better than sending money outside the town, meaning that a lot of food trucks come in and the money just exits. So that's one of the reasons I wouldn't like to have it in Market Square. One of the strong reasons, and the other, of course, is the look.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
Market Square has been removed though, just for point of clarity. Deputy Mayor Akagi.
The person that has the 6 weeks, can they revisit after 6 weeks? Are they consecutive, or are they that they can do it like they have to wait a 6 week period before they can renegotiate again for another 6 weeks?
They have an opportunity to negotiate for another 6 weeks, but that becomes up to staff level to see how they've worked. Is it working? Do we have another laundry list of other food trucks waiting to come in? What we have to look at it from a fair and balanced standpoint as to, what's available, what's here. And I mean, if they are successful, great, fantastic. But again, who else is waiting in the wings? Do we want to keep it fresh? And food trucks do move around, so it's not necessarily this will be their permanent location for the summer. They could be going to St. John, Fredericton, other communities. It's just a matter of what's available at the time.
Thank you very much. I'm just wondering about like Councillor Heenan said about the local establishments. If this food truck is allowed to be there, let's say 18 weeks in a row, then it really is a competition for them. So I'm just wondering. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Kumichel.
Appreciate all the hard work on this. Visiting other communities, I think the way a lot of communities do food trucks is they put out an RFP and then allow that food truck to plug into rather than running generators. So you set up by lamp post, wherever you plug in, and in that RFP, maybe there's garbage removal. I don't know, but I think it's for like more of a seasonal thing. And then that's a potential cash generator in tax revenue for the town, whoever wants to pay the most to set up their spot for the season is kind of how I envisioned it. But I do like the carousel idea, but I think it's probably more realistic to be thinking per season, 3 food trucks per year or per season, or anyhow, that's my 2 cents, how they do it in other spots. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good feedback just because you can picture at the point in order to run it, be on a generator. And as you enjoying the beach there, the hum of a generator the whole time, it's something worth considering, picking locations that do have power and making it part of an RF. That's a great suggestion. Councillor Hurl and Councillor Harlan.
Your worship, I just don't see anything as it pertains to the size of the food truck in the bylaw, and there are some that are very large, and I'm not thinking that our town would be appropriate for the semi-sized ones. Thank you.
Councillor Harlan.
Thank you. So 2 comments just to follow up on Councillor Gumichel's point. Is there any chance to incorporate both an RFP model and a request for, a 6-week license? And the reason I ask that is I know that there are food trucks that do move around. So Fredericton, some of the food trucks from Fredericton, for example, they just went to Graham and Ann Island and have a couple of weekends booked on Graham and Ann Island throughout the season. What that does, they're quite well known, the food trucks, and it generates buzz around them going to be there. I think there's real value in that model. I also understand what Councillor Gumichel is talking about, particularly at a place like the Point. I think that there's value in that. And my last point is, Mr. Spear, you asked us for feedback on the fee schedule, or Paul or Mr. Nopper did, somebody did. Okay, Mr. Nopper. The fees that you are recommending, are those sort of standard fees that other municipalities would be charging? I don't have a context for it.
Through your worship, yes. So I based a lot of the concepts as to what was around what other bylaws are. Not to say that some comments that have sort of come back verbally are, is the food truck license expensive enough to in comparison to tax paying businesses and brick and mortar. So maybe that's something we have to reconsider is looking at those ones. When it comes to like the peddlers and the buskers, you're trying to create that entertainment without hurting the busker or the peddler within that. So those were very reasonable. The food truck one varied dramatically depending on what you want, where you wanted, prime locations. So it really comes down to feel. Right now, this was a baseline to see what the public would say and come back with. I've heard feedback that it should be $500. I've heard feedback it should be $2,000. So it's a matter of what's reasonable. And again, when you're talking right now, a 6-week stay. So if council wanted to look at, for example, your RFP process, maybe that's a seasonal one and you're there for the season. Maybe that's a higher charge. But for the 6-week one, maybe a, $300-$500 rate isn't out of the realm of acceptable. So I think hearing back from council on that and looking at it from those types of standpoints, if that's the direction we want to go, more than happy to look at it, but it really varies based on location, place you're going, what your municipality wants to charge and how it feels against your brick and mortar businesses. So just take that into consideration when looking at this file.
I'll go to Councillor Blanchard just one second, but did you do an analysis on what other municipalities charge for food trucks? Because if they're a lot less, then they're just not gonna come here. It's not gonna be the lineup you think it is to come here for food trucks, to be honest. I know I'm looking for the future 9 locations, why bring that up? But the truth is, with a significant fee, it won't be a big, long list. Just knowing.
And that's where the funds that are listed there, they are on the lower end to see about attractiveness to it. Again, to the higher points you go, your businesses are asking for more longer term stays, more resources. To your point, are they not on generators? Are they going to be contributed to other power sources or other solid waste removal type thing? So it really varies based on location and resources.
Councillor Blanchard, thank you. The hand is smaller than the doorknob behind you. It's a very small hand on that. Yeah. Yeah, raise your hand to be better for sure. Go ahead.
Thanks, your worship. I guess I had a question in a similar vein, I guess, in regards to consultation with other municipalities, less about the what we're charging for the permit, but more about the length of time. So there was some discussion about, some of these trucks do move around. So I'm just thinking and wondering, if someone, let's say, purchased the permit for 6 weeks, of those 6 weeks, how much time would they actually spend in St. Andrews if they are doing and moving between locations for specific reasons? I'm just curious. I don't really know how they work, but I'm just sort of wondering about that, and if maybe because I know for most of the locations, I think we're talking about between Friday and Sunday. Would it make more sense to sort of have a calendar available and they could sort of book off those 4-day weekends, those 4-day slots, as opposed to a full 6-week permit where they may or not be there for the entire 6 weeks? And, instead of having 3 in town, I mean, I understand, we would still have the fees, but I'm more, I'm really thinking more along the lines of variety of food and what we're offering in town and different options for tourists and residents, right? So, and for the record, I'm not opposed to the Market Square location. I think it could be workable. And I think, people looking for a sit-down meal are not the same people looking for something, quick on the street. So I think there's different clientele there. And I think having more options available at different times. And I think we've all experienced, trying to get a reservation downtown during the busy summer months. And I certainly haven't heard of any restaurants struggling for clientele this year. It seems like every place that I go to, they're talking about having a really, really good and a really, really busy year. So I don't think introducing, a single food truck or, down in the Market Square area necessarily has a negative impact. But again, I know that's already been discussed and voted on, so I won't go on about that. But just my real question my question is, I guess, more about the term and whether we want to shorten that just to ensure we have people in as opposed to the longer stretch. So anyways, just my comments and asking, like I said, have we talked with other municipalities about that?
Thank you. Just on this one, council, what I'm hearing is a bunch of different models here, and I don't think we're ready for public hearing of objections right now, because I'm hearing a lot of different things from council. I think we could just table this. Again, you would be the ones to do so. Let's bring it forward the next staff meeting, and we could talk about the items in more length and come up with something that we're all comfortable with before we issue it out to the public. Does that make sense to everybody? Because I'm hearing a lot of different things right now. Typically, you don't hear a lot of different things before you put it out to the public, just from previous experiences. Thank you, Councilor. You're quick on the motions. Seconded by Councilor Bennett. Any more discussion on this one? Not good. All in favor of tabling, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed to tabling? See Councilor Hurdle looking up at the sky. I'm seeing none. That has been tabled. Thank you for that, and we'll revisit that at the next staff meeting. This will bring us ahead to page 131, which would be Councilor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is in reference EBC 240902. The subject is the bylaw number 24-04 Heritage Conservation Bylaw Call for Public Hearing of Objections. The background is the Heritage Board of the Town of St. Andrews was established in the summer of 2023 to develop a heritage conservation bylaw. The board has developed a draft bylaw for consideration by council. Please see the attached documents for more details. Recently, the board hosted 2 open house sessions, one with heritage homeowners and one for the public. Provided are some comments submitted. If council is supportive of the current draft bylaw, it is recommended that council call for a public hearing of objections. The bylaw process is as follows: public hearing of objections, first reading, second reading, and third and final reading. And the action before us is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews sets the date of Tuesday, October 1st, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Council Chambers for a public hearing of objections to draft bylaw number 24-04 Heritage Conservation Bylaw for the Town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Thank you, Councilor Hurdle. Seconder is Councilor Neal. Discussion on this one. Councilor Harlan.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. So my question to staff, just for clarification for the public, if this bylaw were to be passed and put in place, in order for council to make any further amendments to the bylaw, we would have to go through a process that includes a hearing of objections and 3 readings, correct? So this is to clarify one of the residents who wrote in, Mr. Crichton, who was concerned about a foot in the door and that further restrictions and amendments could take place without public scrutiny. So that is not possible. I think it's really important for the public to understand that our process is very clear and very transparent, in my opinion, and that that's not possible. And I just want to state that I do object to the statement that a council is operating with coercion to try and have people take care of their historic properties. I don't believe that that's what we're doing. I believe that what we're doing is trying to ensure that our historic properties that are all protected and that we can enhance what we have to offer as a town. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Harlan. Anyone else? Mr. Nopper.
Just one clarification, there is a schedule associated with the bylaw that lists the homes. In a bylaw process, if there's a change to the schedule, it is one motion of council, no public hearings, no anything. So basically, if you're adding a name, taking it off within that schedule, it's no readings, it's just a motion of council. But anything else within the main body of the bylaw needs a public hearing and 3 readings of council.
Yeah, there can't be extra terms and conditions put on the homeowner without going through the 3 readings. And that was the concern in it, yeah.
And just to follow up, Your Worship, what Mr. Knopper was saying was, for those homes listed on the schedule, they actually have to be added and and deleted from the New Brunswick Place of Registry of Historical Places, which requires the permission of the homeowner anyway. So just to be clear, we can't randomly pick a house, say, oh, that'd be a nice one to add on and throw it onto the schedule. All of that has to be done with the permission of the homeowner.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Heenan.
Your worship, I'm just wondering about the date. There's nothing else on that Tuesday. Are we just having the one meeting for the heritage?
Through you, your worship, no. No, you guys will be having anticipating another budget meeting that night where you'll have
Okay.
presentations from local groups and organizations
Okay.
on community assistance grants.
What you're hearing is lots of excitement.
I just didn't have it in. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor of setting the date for the hearing of objections, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. That date has been set. I could see your hand nicely, Counselor Blanchard. Much better than the other one. All right, we are jumping ahead now in regards to a discussion on the courthouse painting update and project scope change. Mr. Spear, over to you on this one, I believe.
Thank you, your worship. So as you know, the staff had budgeted and council had approved a painting project for about $100,000 of council, of town's contribution, plus monies from other levels of government, which was just to do the painting on the outside of the courthouse, outside only. But we ran into some issues, one of them being that prior to us getting the courthouse, had been painted with lead paint. So now there's regulations surrounding that on the proper disposal and stuff. So the budget came in at $312,000. So we talking to the consultant, they said, what do you want to do? I said, well, forget about it. So, but we are they are going to be talking to John LaRue, who I think many of you know. He's a historical architect, and there might be alternative ways of doing the work. So we're still working with Heritage Standing, Dr. Tom Morrison, just to see if something more can be done, because the work definitely has to be done at some point. But we're looking at that. The change of scope comes like this, is that we've, after a recent windstorm in the spring or summer, we went out to the courthouse lawn and the grass was full of asphalt shingles. And we didn't realize you can't really see the roof because the pitch is so low. So Public Works got on a ladder, went and had a look, and the roof is in very bad shape. And so Mr. Knopper was talking to one of our funding partners who would agree to a change in scope. I think it's 40%. 40%. So we're just asking that it's going to come under our budget, but we'd like to be able to replace the roof this fall, just to make sure that there's no structural damage and it's still needed work. Then we'll try to figure out about the envelope of the building in the future. The painting itself, while needed, isn't in that bad of a shape. It's not a structural thing yet. And so it might even be a couple of years. We got to come up with a plan, then apply for money. There is money for heritage properties, but it takes some time to get that all approved. So we're just looking for a scope change for this fall to get that completed, where it's kind of within the CAO's budget. Just, that's already been approved and it's below. We just wanted to get your verbal okay. We don't need it through motion to repair the roof this fall within the $50,000 range is the maximum.
Okay, Council, I think we can all agree that having a solid roof is much more important on a heritage building than necessarily the paint job. So you're looking for consensus from council, is that what you're looking for? Council, does anyone is opposed to that? The other thing is probably when we discuss the painting next time, we'll have a proposal to know what Civic Trust is thinking as well for the future of the building, although some of you did attend the presentation. Councilor Bennett, I saw you reach for it, actually.
Thank you, your worship. And I'm all about fixing the roof. I think that's critical. But I actually went down and took a look, and around the columns, around the doors and around the steps, there's a few spots where paint is missing altogether in a few locations. I don't think it's something that a little bit of maintenance and a gallon of paint couldn't fix a lot of those sins there and protect it for the winter, at least until we get it dealt with, so it doesn't get any worse than it already is. And I would encourage staff to maybe, spend a small amount and a couple hours to go do some preventive maintenance there.
Thank you, Councilor Bennett. Is that something you can review with Mr. Acton and see what is able to be done within staff? Because to your point, that's how rot sets in, right, Councilor Bennett? So. Councilor Gumashall.
Just a couple general comments because I'm a little bit tired and grumpy. But I was on the previous council when we took over the courthouse, and we did that in good faith, and I don't remember what we got, 50,000 a year for 4 years to take care of it. And there was no mention of lead paint. There was no mention of a bad roof. So I feel like we got ourselves a lemon here with the courthouse. And maybe we should just turn it back over to the province, say, thank you very much. Here's your 200, here's your money back, and you can have it back, because I really feel like we were duped or misled, or how could the fact that the roof is bad, this was what, 6, 7 years ago that we took it over. How could the fact that the roof is bad not have been part of that transaction, or lead paint at $300,000? So thank you very much, province of New Brunswick. You can have your courthouse back, and we're out. That's my opinion.
I
Thank
think
you.
you're grumpy because at the time council was told it was structurally sound, right? So I guess just on that note, Civic Trust is coming to us, I think within a couple of weeks for their final report. Let's see their final report, and then we'll have a discussion just like that, right? Because there is some merit into what you're saying for sure.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Anyone else? Grumpy, Councilor Gumichel, that was quick with the hand. I gotta acknowledge grumpiness. All right, so I guess back to the original consensus. Do you want to hold off until we hear from Civic Trust, or do you want to proceed with the roof replacement, council? All right, quick show of hands for the roof replacement. It's within the budget. That's the majority. All right, we are now moving ahead to the Economic Development Agreement Officer position, which is on page, stuck in there. And I will pass it over to Councillor Hurdle actually on this one, if you don't mind, Councillor Hurdle.
No, not at all. Thank you, Your Worship. This is reference number EBC 240905. The subject is Economic Development Agreement and Officer Position. The background is the town of St. Andrews has been working with the communities of St. Stephen and Eastern Charlotte on the creation of a joint economic development agency. The goal of this agency is to work strategically with the 3 communities to help bolster and build on joint economic strategies that will benefit the region. Please see the attached agreement for more details. The agreement will be for a 3-year term, and the Economic Development Officer will report to a board consistent with the 3 CAOs of the represented communities. It is anticipated the position will start in 2025. The goal is to get all 3 communities to partner in the agreement and start the hiring process for the Economic Development Officer. And the motion before us is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the 3-year Economic Development Agreement to start an economic development agency between the Town of St. Andrews, Municipal District of St. Stephen, and the Municipality of Eastern Charlotte, and I so move.
Thank you. A seconder for that one. Deputy Mayor Akaji was very quick. Okay, council, just before we vote on this, in order for this to go through, all 3 municipalities would have to sign on. If one does not, it doesn't go ahead, just to be clear. Just because we approve this motion doesn't mean this is happening. So over to you for comment, questions, Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship, I do believe we said that no one else could join this, I'm going to call it a pack, for 3 years. Am I correct on that? So if all 3 municipalities vote for this and it becomes law or becomes, then no one else can come in, like McAdam couldn't come in and say they want part of it, right? Was it a 3-year?
I thought it was 2, but it might be 3. Was it 3? It was 3.
Yeah.
Better memory than me. But
3-year
yes,
agreement?
it was, so the
Yes.
individual could get their feet under them and get
Yes.
used to working with 3 municipalities.
Yes.
You
I just
know,
wanted to make sure.
I'm sure that'll be a conversation if it goes well for the future, for sure.
Yes.
But yes, for the short term, I guess you could say, or
Yeah.
medium term, I guess
Thank
you could say
you.
3 years is, it'll be
Thank
just
you.
us. Counselor will go, Counselor Hurdle, and then Counselor Ware.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess this is a great initiative and definitely enough to bring attention to our area. And I think a unified community is definitely the one that has the loudest voice. I think that's important. My only concern relate to sort of what it would come to a report card or a service level agreement. I know it's a bit of a chicken and the egg debate. You know, it's hard to determine what this can accomplish until it's established to determine what it can accomplish. So that said, I guess, you know, after 3 years, we don't like it, we pull out, but in the meantime, we wouldn't be able to. That's correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially to attract talented individuals with experience, you've got to at least give them a minimum level of a contract. And that's just, if it's just 1 year, then we'll probably just be attracting people fresh out of business school. So that was the idea behind the 3 years. We all agree that there'd have to be some type of KPI, and we work on that prior to hiring the person, the individual that's going to fill this role. to look for wins, but knowing it's kind of a tortoise and hare, that year one will be a little slow, then year two and three is when we'd start to look for things. But having said that, some things like related to housing or workforce development can actually be looked after in the relatively quick term. It's the attraction of business that tends to take a lot longer in doing.
Thank you. Counselor Ware?
Yeah, I guess I have mixed feelings on this once I saw the mandate and particularly when I saw workforce development and housing. We've got Opportunities New Brunswick, we've got the Regional Development Commission, who has identical workforce development and housing. We saw the enterprise organizations for many years, which were fairly competent. And I'm just wondering what magic bullet we have that is going to make us be successful. And there's nobody anymore dedicated to economic development than myself. But at the same time, I've seen so many organizations come and go, and KPIs are very important. Hard to do the KPIs until you dig into it, but at the same token, I think that's why many of these have failed. And I think at this point in time, the Regional Service Commission is failing because there was an expectation, but no guidelines set up at the start. And I attended a number of meetings at the start of that. I know His Worship did. And both of us, I think, came away with the sort of same feeling, where is this going to go? And I guess the other thing that came to mind immediately as I was reading through it, there's hardly a council meeting that we don't discuss parking in the downtown area. We talk about business incentive grants. Now we're talking about a development agency. But yet before any of those things are going to work, we have to solve the parking problem. So would the money be better spent hiring an expert in the field of parking development? I'm sure there's people that have that qualification. Until we solve the parking problem, I don't think we're going to solve any major undertakings in the downtown area, because every meeting it's parking, and it's a problem we never deal with. We just circle the wagons and we never tackle it head on. So, I strongly believe in economic development. I believe the right individual, and there are not a lot of right individuals. Enterprise system in New Brunswick showed that. They may have had one or two that were stars. The rest were, I don't know what the word I could politely use, but they didn't accomplish what they were set out to do. And we've got the Service Commission right here next door that's supposed to be looking after this for us. I just wonder if we're just jumping on the bandwagon and we're going to do economic development. It's a pretty easy thing to say, an extremely difficult thing to do. Requires somebody with boundless energy and tremendous enthusiasm. And yet we still got the parking problem, and I don't know how we deal with it all. Those are my comments. Certainly not going to affect me in my lifetime. I'm approaching those past the golden years.
I'm pretty sure you told us you're not a senior though, didn't you? Didn't you say that?
I'm
again?
not a senior.
There you go.
I don't, my definition of senior is different from most. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it. I have a hesitancy to spend this money at the end of 3 years saying, what did we accomplish? And I don't know if the other two have signed on yet or not, so.
From my understanding is not as of yet, but I can't really speak to where they're at in the process. I got Counselor Harlan, but Mr. Spears, yours in relation.
Yeah, just want to respond to Counselor Weir. I agree with everything you say. I guess the only hope is those other agencies were out of the reach of council. There were provincial agencies or other independent boards. This one will directly report through the CAOs, which directly report to you. And so the hope is that by giving them more hands-on direction is the hope. You may be right in 3 years. We say, well, that maybe wasn't the best decision, but we think we've identified early in your mandate that economic development was an important strategy for the town. We've gotten the housing, and that'd be nice to bring in different types of jobs and things in the area. As you mentioned, as a big supporter of the port through your professional life, and now through helping them provide more projects, it's something that could potentially help down there too. So I guess it's just to see that now is the time, in my mind anyway, to grab this by the horns and see if we can move this along and move kind of that next step in the community, which, is to no surprise is becoming more of a retirement community. It'd be nice to be able to bring in some jobs and stuff that will attract the young families. You bring in jobs, then you'll lower the average age of the community.
Mr. Chair, Counselor Harlan.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. And I would agree that although we have other departments, agencies who are responsible for economic development, their scope is large. And I feel like we are a tiny pin on the map for them. What I like about this is that it is more focused, or it has the potential to be more focused on our specific needs. And I think if there's going to be success, there's potential for success with this model. And I recognize that this position will report to the 3 CAOs, and I know that you report to us as a council. But I do wonder, if I read the document correctly, it looks like the economic development officer only meets with us as a council on a once yearly basis. Is that correct?
That's what's kind of been there for now. I think that was a councils of the whole, that the expectation would be quarterly possibly to meet and talk with you, like the equivalent of a staff report. But again, as pointed out earlier, you're probably not going to see a lot in the first year, especially a lot of, you can give an activity report without mentioning a lot of wins, if you will.
But it's very possible for large initiatives that the individual would come in and present to council.
Right. Okay. So I guess that's the one piece that I feel is important. Is that we as a council have an opportunity to have some direct voice with the directions that are being taken. I recognize that we can do it through you, but I think given the amount of the importance of this particular position, I would like to see that strengthened a little bit in terms of the opportunities to meet with the individual councils. I also like the fact that the 3, if I read it correctly again, if the 3 councils will have an opportunity to meet collectively as well. And I think there's some tremendous value in that also. Thank you.
Anyone else? Counselor Bennett.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Again, and thank you, Councillor Weir and Councillor Harlan and everybody else who spoke on this. I do think a lot about what you said there, Councillor Weir, and I certainly appreciate your opinion and your expertise, from many years of being in the business. it's kind of hard for me to kind of comprehend this. Like, the mayor has already reported to us that the RSC is looking for some pretty significant increases in their budget this year, which means that we'll have an increase in our taxes for sure, you know, or a reduction in services, which I don't think that anybody's got a stomach for. The RSC is mandated for economic development, just like they were mandated to do, you know, rural transportation. We've now got a St. Andrews solution for rural transportation. And I guess, you know, it's pretty, looks like it's pretty close to having a St. Andrews solution for economic development. However, you know, it's hard to think about where the money's going to come from if the RSC, you know, is looking for significant increases in their budget. I do think that they're going to need to start honing up and doing some activities for what they're mandated for. And if so, then are we going to be double charged? If we sign into a 3-year contract for this position, and then the RSC decides that they're really going to start putting some effort and focus into this, well, the province has already said that we're mandated and we had to pay our share, whatever that is, our 1/7 share, whatever the RSC. So that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. You know, not only that, like, I'm not sure what kind of development we're really have a stomach for here in St. Andrews. We just finished talking about parking. We have a shortage on housing, hence why we spent $500,000, you know, to create housing in this area. And now we're saying that we need more development, more economic development, and there's already a shortage of labor all over town, would have to mean that we would have an influx of more people, which would only exacerbate the problem of housing in our area. You know, we're nowhere near the levels of housing that we need to be in this area. And we're already talking about trying to increase, you know, our resident level again. So I don't quite understand how we can consider an economic drive to bring businesses into our area, but yet not have the housing for the people that we have here already. Have we made huge, you know, increases in housing in the last 3 years? Absolutely. And everybody at this table should be commended for their efforts for that. But do we still have a long way to go? Absolutely. You know, the funding is only one small part of it, but the scary part is what the RSC is going to do and what our budget increases are going to be there. So for those reasons and for everything that Councilor Weir said, I got to say that this is not something that I want to support at this time unless I hear something different. If you folks can, you know, enlighten me, maybe there's something I'm not thinking about. But Eastern Charlotte has already passed on this. They've already tabled this motion once. They are going to bring it back to the table in the fall, but they couldn't come to a conclusion on it. They were deadlocked. So it might be a dead issue already. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bennett. Just on the RSC, once the budget's been approved to be released, Hollis Bartlett has agreed to come into council and actually present the budget to us. So that's going to be a good opportunity for all of council to dive into some of your questions and concerns about that. Yeah, but point taken. I will say that economic development, one of the primary functions, I'm assuming, because it isn't up and going, will be actually the development of housing for the workforce. I think that will fall under it. And to your point, it's they used to say chicken and egg. Do you build it and then the housing comes? No, we now know that you need the housing to build it the other way. So that'll be a mandate. And then your point on municipal funding is fair. I have no problem going on to say that all the housing solutions that we have within the community has been done on the back of private developers, and the municipality and the other levels of government have not done anything at all, barely, for this community to help the housing crisis that we're in. We saw that with the accelerator program, where the entire region was left off, millions of dollars going towards housing, and this region was completely left off the map. We can get into Opportunities New Brunswick. I've not seen Opportunities New Brunswick come and provide any housing for this community, right? So to have someone that is actually living that day to day to try to battle, it is a bit of chicken and egg. So, and I do hear you on the Regional Service Commission, and we will get into that for sure. I will say parking as well. I think at budget time, there'll be 2 different options. I know one for sure that'll be presented to council, but I think we'll have 2 parking options. One was one we kind of know about that isn't moving ahead. The other one is a new idea from staff. So We will have some housing solutions. Just to be clear, it's not a parking garage. But we're gonna have more conversations about that as well. Counselor Heenan.
Yes, your worship. I'm going to say that this person or candidate, we're setting up for failure if he or she has to answer to 3 councils. There's no way that that person's going to be able to answer to 3 councils and to keep 3 councils happy. And I totally agree that the CAOs are the persons that need to be the contact. I have no problem in this person giving an update to council via the CAO. But I'll tell you, if they're going to answer to 3 councils, they're not going to get a thing done. They need to be put in charge of economic development, and that's what they're going to do, not have meetings. Like, this is too much. I have worked for people where I've worked on 2 sides of the game and it doesn't work. And I will never support anything that has to answer to 3 councils. It's going to answer to 3 towns, but not 3 councils. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's why the CAOs are the individuals. And that's why the individual can't come to every council meeting, because they would literally, we have so many a month that we're talking about economic development. Imagine 3 municipalities. So you are right. There is, as someone who has a lot of meetings, sometimes it does impact productivity. All right. Anyone else? Counselor Ware?
I'll keep it short since it's my second time. We keep talking housing. Early on my term, I brought up the concept of community housing corporation. Or is this a backdoor way of getting into a community housing corporation, or should we just be right up front and call it a community housing corporation? If housing is going to be one of the main mandates of this organization, why not just call it that and let it be that?
Don't, go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Spears.
Councilor Ware, no, that really isn't, we did talk about community housing. I think all of us run in fear of that. It's being a housing corporation. There's people that are really good at it. And when it gets into the political realm, it becomes very sticky. So no, it'd be more like, for instance, maybe they help take the reign on this NBCC project for as an instance where they'd put in funding grants and things like that, or meet with a few other developers to try to encourage private developers to come in here. You know, that would be the type of thing. As far as us actually building our own, that's not the intent. I'm not saying within 2 years, a person might say it might not be a bad idea for more affordable housing, but it's certainly only a minor concept that all 3 communities believe private developers are the best way to go. And there's even government grants available to private developers to keep things economical in order to keep it affordable.
Thank you. All right. Call the question then. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. Got 6, and any opposed, or sorry, 7, any opposed? Got 2, so by a vote of 7-2, that has been carried. Thank you, council. We have no new business, so that does jump us right ahead into question period. Mr. Spear or Mr. Knopper, was anything submitted online?
No, your worship.
Okay, anyone in the audience have any questions regarding anything on the agenda this evening? All right, well, thank you very much for attending. Really appreciate. So I will be looking at we'll be going to councilor and deputy mayor's comments actually. So council, any comments from anyone? Councilor Michelle.
Just briefly, it's back to running season for me, and I was running on the highway yesterday out through Bayside, and I see that they have done some repairs along the highway while I was away this summer. Some repairs are very well done and others not so well done. It's with mixed feelings. I see the town crew working up on Prince of Wales Street today. They're doing a great job. They really work hard. It was a hot day, and you can see they take a lot of pride in the work they do. We also have our own steamroller, small steamroller, which is interesting. The the work along the highway, none of it's steamrolled. It's all mostly done with the shovel, I'm guessing. And there's not that same attention to detail that we're seeing in town. And I'm not suggesting that the town guys take over the highway work, but I do think there are some lessons in that. There are spots where the work that was done is gonna collect water. It's gonna add to safety issues along the highway. And there's also areas along the highway, like by the Purple House or the Lilac House, for example, where the road drops off more than a foot. So I really think that the speeds in Bayside should be reduced. I think maybe, even the significantly reduced, if not condemned. The roads are in deplorable condition. And without pointing any fingers, I think as a community, we need to speak to our provincial, in the upcoming election, we need to make sure that all candidates have a position on that road, and that road needs to be a priority for coming up to something that's acceptable very soon, because it's been since the Liberals were in last time around, there hasn't been any significant work done on the road in Bayside or in also Bocabac. So both those roads coming into town are substandard. Thank you. Like I was saying, I'm a big fan.
Thank you. You were away, but you did miss a number of conversations, including even the cutting back of vegetation along secondary roads and things like that. I know they've done a little bit of work, but really what it comes down to is to have some type of plan from the province of what the 41 cents that our rural areas are paying for, and really, we have like an asset management plan in the town. It'd be good to know what their schedule is of doing repair. And I know that would be flexible because sometimes projects take longer than others, but it's an ongoing issue. I will update council as well that I did write a letter in regards to Highway 127 and vehicles parked along the highway outside of a establishment, a takeout, and asked them to lower the speed limits. They will not be lowering the speed limits. However, they are going to add signs that does not allow parking actually along the highway there. So when that happens, I don't know, but that's communication that just came through literally right before this meeting. They're going to work with the business owner to find alternative parking arrangements. I do know that they have their own property close by. Maybe there's something I don't know, but that would be a safety mitigation that a lot of people have written and called counselors on over the last little while. So again, not everything's being taken care of, but some of the files out there are finally starting to get a little bit of action. But it's something that we're gonna have to stay on top of with the process. But yeah, you missed a long discussion about the Highway 127 as well as the secondary roads.
I noticed some significant culverts were installed. I understood the placement of one by the old tuna plant, but there's a second significant culvert that was installed that I didn't understand why it would be there, but
They had a stop
I'm
sign
not
on
an
one of the
engineer.
corners.
No, that's the other one.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Michelle. Councillor Heenan.
Yes, your worship. The thing is, each and every year I've written to the town about it. I had neighbors today come into my yard regarding the speeding on Parr Street going to the schools. And once again, it's become a safety issue. They've come in and they're really upset, and I can see that they're speeding. But the point is, it happens each and every year, but I just needed to bring to attention that we need, people who are listening, I wish they just wouldn't speed and there wouldn't be an issue. But if someone is killed on a street of Parr Street, that some of it is not sidewalked, not looking for a sidewalk, just saying, does not have a sidewalk, and the school and the kids are walking to school, there's going to be something bad happen, because when they come up over the hill on Parr, they don't touch the road. They come up and they just bounce off it. So if there happens to be a small child there, it could be dangerous. And I just want to point out that I want to make sure people are warned that this is not a good thing. Thank you, Worship.
Perfect. And just on that, I know that calling the St. George detachment during the day, there can be some lengthy wait time. So I am going to wait that, but there is an online reporting tool as well. And I do find calling in the evening, I get through fairly quickly. But I have had several conversations, as I think a lot of you are aware of the RCMP, about the speeding in the community. There's always been speeding, but it feels like this summer got a lot worse. They have made some arrests, but there's still a lot more that need to be done. Because I don't recall ever seeing the speeds in particular at night, but yeah, when the kids are going to school, there is too, but it seems like a lot of people are racing around town, and I know it's not just a St. Andrews problem, it's Charlotte County wide based on feedback through social media.
Your worship, last night I saw and I gave a description to the RCMP of the person going down Water Street last night, doing, I would say, 70 kilometers an hour, no license plate. And they wanted to know what the license plate was. I said there wasn't any, but I got a description of the car and the driver, which I forwarded on after a 40-minute wait. But they were doing at least 70 going down Water Street last evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. Go Councillor Whalen, Deputy Mayor Akaji.
Yeah, I'll keep my comments short, but Councillor Gumashell mentions 127. I think a lot of the repairs that were done it was the end of the day, and they had a half truckload of asphalt, and they find a place where there was a low spot and dump it in and finish up. 2 culverts that were put in, I can only anticipate it was due to runoff from the hills to the east of the highway where they were placed. I've never seen a water problem, but it is election time, so, you know, we've got to get some road work going. So but it's a sad state of affairs. I think His Worship was copied in an email that I received from a resident that lives on 127, goes to a community mailbox on Chamcook number 3. Extremely dangerous road to come out of because it's one of the few passing lanes just before you come out the road. So there's a slow vehicle, everybody's trying to pass. If you pull out, both lanes are full. And so I went down and had a look at it. Some of the trees have been there so long, they're at least 6 inches in diameter. So I was going to run down with my chainsaw, and I said, oh, I can do that in a half hour, but I might knock down some power lines at the same time. So, but I am going to go down with my chainsaw. I'm going to try to fix it for the lady so that she does feel safe coming from her mailbox. But I don't think that's ridiculous that a council has to go do that. There should be some liaison with the province. We pay 41 cents or whatever it is. We pay so much for the Regional Service Commission. We flow our concerns and comments through council with respect to the Regional Service Commission. We don't go there directly. And that's what we're doing now with the highways. I'm trying to liaise with the highways people to do some work. And there's one supervisor or engineer that just refuses to do any work on that highway. And that's it. And he has that power. So I don't know what the answer is, but it's extremely frustrating to live in a municipality. Our taxes have gone up a phenomenal amount of money, relatively speaking, and we're getting no more service. In fact, it seems as though we're getting less service when it comes to things like highways and all those things. Just very frustrating.
Thank you, Councillor Ware. Deputy Mayor Akaji.
Thank you, Worship and Council. First of all, I went to the 200th anniversary of Chestnut Hall. I'd like to thank the staff and who did it, as well as Norma Stewart, who did a lot of the organization, but she had help from her staff and she had help from her friends. I'd like to thank the council for going, everyone, and I'm sorry, Mr. Neal, that Mr. Councillor Neal, that we got you the wrong time, but it was nice to see you there, though. Thank you very much, and thank you for letting me do that. I had a good time and good food. Today I went to NBCC because it started today. I heard you guys talking about their speeding and whatnot. They had a good welcoming ceremony today and a beginning of a new year. And I welcome them on behalf of the town, but also to the unceded territory. But there are a lot of new students there as well. So hopefully we do things in the community that will help to, if it's slowing down the speed limit, I'd like to see that too. So, but there are a lot of new students, very wonderful students that have come here and we welcome them to St. Andrews. The other thing that's going on this month is the Indigenous Archbishop for the Anglican Church will be visiting around the September 14th. So he will be here and we'll be talking to the parish of the Anglican parish, but also will be in our town. So he will be here. September 30th, as you've mentioned, Mr. Spear, that it's our Truth and Reconciliation Day. And we will be hosting it again. Judith Moses and myself. And I've asked for another elder to come and bless all the drums that we made. So I'm putting it out there to any of you that have a drum and you would like to have it awoken, because that's why I can't play mine before September the 30th. I have not had mine formally awoken. So he will be doing that. He will be doing an awakening of the drums. And then I hope those 70 will continue around the point. So you may get noise pollution, but it'll be a nice drumming, noise pollution, and a silent walk in memory of those from residential schools that didn't come home, and those that did, and those that are still suffering and will continue to suffer with the loss of their family members. So I want to thank you. The only other thing I have to say is Oktoberfest is September 18th to 22nd. Is that correct?
Say that again, sorry.
You were
Oktoberfest?
listening,
No,
weren't you?
Oktoberfest is what date?
September 18th to the 22nd. Is that what it is? It's in September?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that was right. And I think that's it. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And anyone else? All right, I am good for this evening. Thank you very much, council. So I'll be looking for at 8:28 PM for a motion to go into closed session as per, better bring up the reason, 1 sec. As per local governance acts, section 68(1)(c), information that could cause financial loss or gain to a person or the local government or could jeopardize negotiations leading to an agreement or contract. Could I have a mover? Got Counselor Heenan, second by Counselor Gumashell. All in favor of going to closed session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're in closed session. We'll give a moment for technology and our visitors. Thanks for being here
Thank you very much.
to depart.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Gonna go to the washroom. So, all right.
Oh, did you need another moment? Because we can just hit on pause. No, you're good. Okay, so we're good to go, Mr. Knopper. Okay, at 9:09, I'll be looking for a motion to come out of closed session. I've got Counselor Heenan, seconded by Counselor Gumashell. All in favor? Oh, well. Well, you know what? I'll get you for one of the adjournments. Okay, you stay posted. All in favor of coming out of closed session? All right, motion to adjourn, Deputy Mayor Action, and seconded by Counselor Blanchard. Yeah, Hurdle tried to steal that from you for the record. All in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. Thanks, council.